This happened a few weeks ago. I'm 34 now and always thought of myself as a seasoned reporter. But that's not where I was at that moment. I was nursing a broken heart after a rough breakup. I needed inspiration and thought diving into California's urban legends might help. So I ended up at this shabby motel on the outskirts of a small town. The flickering neon lights felt more eerie than inviting. The air smelled old and musty. I walked to my room, hearing muffled conversations from the thin walls. I thought it was just other restless guests. Maybe I was sensitive because of everything going on. Still, a knot formed in my stomach that night. I've never stopped thinking about it. As the days passed, things got weirder. At night, I could hear strange noises, laughter and voices that didn't fit together. They got louder when the sun went down. I told myself it was just stress, but I wasn't so sure anymore. Local folks I met in the diner whispered about phantom kids and spirits connected to the motel. My heart raced when I heard their stories. I was sitting in a corner sipping my coffee while they talked. One night, I found a child's drawing taped to my door. It was a stick figure with big eyes and a crooked smile. I felt cold. Instead of being annoyed, unease washed over me. How did it get there? I searched the hallway for a kid but only found empty shadows. My pulse quickened as I returned to my room, glancing over my shoulder. Another time I woke up to see something move out of the corner of my eye. It was just a blur, but it made my heart race. I thought maybe I was just tired. Each time I tried to brush it off. Still, I began questioning my sanity. Was I uncovering urban legends or becoming part of them? I met another guest who had a similar story. He could hear the voices, too. He said he felt watched. I think we both wanted to run, but we also needed to figure it out. Then I saw something move again. I turned quickly, thinking it was him, but he was gone. I felt a chill creep down my spine. Then the lights flickered harder. I swore I heard laughter that was not from this world. My heart pounded. I wasn't sure what to do next. Maybe I was unraveling the legends, but what if I wasn't alone? I could feel the pressure building around me. I took a deep breath and walked toward the door. It was just a motel, but there was something else waiting for me outside. Then I heard footsteps, slow and heavy, coming from the hallway. I froze. I wanted to look, but I couldn't move. The air felt thicker, like it was alive. The laughter and the voices mixed in with the footsteps, sending chills down my spine. I wouldn't let fear take over, but doubt crept in. I needed to find out what was happening. I readied myself to confront whatever lurked in the shadows, but I didn't know if I was ready for what awaited me. I opened the door slowly, careful not to make any noise. The hallway was dim, lit only by the flickering bulb overhead. My heart raced with each step I took. The laughter faded, but the echoes of whispers still danced around me, taunting me. I could barely focus on the voices, but they felt close, almost like they were in my head. I glanced down the hall. It was empty, but an unease settled in my gut. I didn't feel safe. The guest I had met earlier flashed through my mind. Had he left? Or was he still caught in this strange, haunting reality? I took a step forward, willing myself to look around. As I moved, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, just at the end of the hall. A small, dark shadow flitted by. I froze again, debating whether to follow or flee. My curiosity won out. I walked cautiously toward the end of the hallway, each step echoing too loudly. Then I saw it, a door slightly ajar. The whispers had intensified, now sounding like muffled screams. I approached the door, heart pounding. Cold air seeped from the gap, sending shivers racing down my spine. I could feel the energy shift around me, urging me to turn back. But I didn't. I needed answers. I pushed the door open just enough to peer inside. The room was empty, only a bed covered in a faded floral comforter and an old dresser across from it. Something crumpled on the floor caught my attention. As I stepped closer, I realized it was an old newspaper clipping, yellowed and tattered. Picking it up, I read the headline, and chills ran through me. Motel child disappearance. Family still seeks answers. My breath caught in my throat. This couldn't be related, could it? I frantically skimmed the article. It told of a young girl who vanished from the motel years ago, her laughter still said to echo in the hallways. I was not imagining things. The legends were real, and I was standing in the heart of it all. Suddenly I heard a sound behind me. It was soft at first, a whisper, but it grew louder, a child's voice. "Help me!" I spun around, but no one was there. My heart raced as I stepped back into the hallway. The laughter from before returned, this time faintly mocking. I was alone, yet I felt the presence of unseen eyes watching me. Then, with another burst of courage, I called out, "Is someone there? Are you the girl?" Silence fell over the hall. My own voice echoed back to me, but as I turned back to the room, I noticed something strange. The door was now fully closed. I rushed back to the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic settled in. I pounded on it. "Let me out!" I shouted, desperation spilling from my lips. The whispers turned into a cacophony of laughter, and I could feel my heart racing wildly in my chest. Suddenly the lights flickered violently, and then everything went dark. I was alone in the pitch black, surrounded by the sound of laughter, feeling more trapped than ever. The darkness pressed against me like a heavy blanket. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to wake up from this nightmare. But I wasn't asleep. The laughter echoed around me, sharp and mocking. I fumbled in the dark, reaching for the door. I had to get out. I stepped back, feeling the rough wallpaper against my palm. As panic swelled, I took a deep breath and stood still, listening. The laughter faded into whispers again, a soft murmur skirting just out of reach. "Help me!" cried the voice once more, now sounding closer. It sent chills through my entire being. I needed to find the light switch. I needed to see where I was. My fingers brushed against the wall as I moved slowly, counting my steps. I reached the door frame. It felt solid like reality, but it was still shut tight. My heart pounded in rhythm with the whispers, a frantic drumbeat urging me to act. Then I heard it, a soft scraping noise like something being dragged across the floor. I turned in the direction of the sound, my breath catching. The laughter faded and the whispers became eerily quiet. I wasn't alone. I strained to make out any shapes in the dark. My mind spun, conjuring images of what could be lurking just beyond my sight. "Is someone there?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "Please, I just want to help." In response, the scraping grew louder, closer. Shadows seemed to shift before me, swirling in the dim light filtering through the edges of the closed door. I forced myself to stay still, rooted to the ground. That's when I felt it. A chill swept through the air, freezing the blood in my veins. A small hand, cool as ice, grazed against my arm. I gasped and stumbled backward. "Who are you?" I demanded, fighting the urge to run. The whispers erupted again, now forming a cacophony of sounds swarming the space. "Help me! Help me!" I clenched my fists, determination kicking in. "I will help you," I shouted almost defiantly. "Just tell me what you need." The laughter returned, louder this time, filling the room with trepidation. It felt like a cruel game. Whatever was happening, it was getting more intense. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on. My stomach dropped as my eyes adjusted. Before me stood a child, an apparition with hollow eyes and a tangled mess of hair. She pointed past me, her lips moving soundlessly. "What?" I glanced back over my shoulder but saw nothing. When I turned back, she was gone. I felt an overwhelming urge to flee. I turned and sprinted down the hall, my heartbeat roiling in my ears. Then I noticed something strange. The hallway stretched endlessly before me, each step taking me further into the unknown. There were doors on either side, all closed. I could hear whispers rising around me, urging me to choose. As I ran, a door creaked open slightly. A flicker of light spilled from the crack, illuminating a familiar face. The guest, the one who had spoken of the girl. His expression was one of sorrow mixed with foreboding. "You have to leave," he called, but his voice was drowned in the cacophony. "I can't," I yelled back, my throat tightening. "What do I need to do?" "What's yours?" he replied, his voice momentarily clear above the noise. And then I realized, the whispers weren't just calling for help. They were urging me toward something. I needed to know what it was. I took a deep breath and made my decision. I had to confront whatever lay ahead. Then the laughter grew louder, thick with anticipation. The game was far from over. I took a deep breath and pushed open the nearest door. The hinges creaked like a groan of protest, and I stepped into the room, heart racing. The light flickered on, illuminating a faintly decorated space that seemed frozen in time. Dust motes floated lazily in the air, and the musty smell of forgotten memories filled my nostrils. As I scanned the room, I noticed an ornate mirror hanging on the wall. Its surface was cracked, and it felt like it was watching me. I hesitated, but then took a step closer. Maybe something in the mirror would help me understand the girl's haunting presence. I leaned in, peering into the glass. My reflection looked haggard, hair wild and eyes wide with disbelief. Behind me, the doorway darkened as if something were lurking just outside. A shiver ran down my spine. Suddenly, the whispers intensified again, swirling around me like a storm. "Help us! Find us!" They echoed loudly in my mind. I felt dizzy. The girl pointed insistently from the mirror, her spectral form flickering like a faulty light bulb. "What do you want?" I whispered, desperation creeping into my voice. In the reflection, I saw not just myself but shapes. Faces emerged from the shadows behind me, distorted and pleading. The more I watched, the clearer their eyes became. Trapped souls, desperate for release. Panic set in as I stumbled backward. That's when the realization hit. The face of one of the figures looked strikingly familiar. It was the guest from earlier. "No," I gasped as comprehension crashed over me like icy water. "You're trapped here too?" The laughter from outside twisted into a sinister melody, blurring with the whispers. Still reeling, I turned back to the mirror. The girl's finger traced a line toward a dusty box perched on a shelf behind me. It caught the light as if it held secrets. I turned around, heart pounding. I could feel an unseen force urging me closer to the box. The whispers surged again, louder, more frantic. I reached out, fingers brushing against it. My skin tingled as if static charged the air, and when I lifted the lid, it creaked ominously. Inside was a collection of faded photographs, old letters tied with fraying twine, and something that glimmered. A small pendant. A chill ran through me as I recognized it as the girl's necklace. "These belong to you?" I asked the empty room, feeling her presence heavy in the air. In that moment, I understood. Each object held a piece of their desperate narrative, a tragic history that begged to be uncovered. But I was caught in a web, torn between the desire for answers and the fear of what I might uncover. Then the door slammed shut behind me with a force that rattled the walls, cutting off my escape. I turned, panic surging again. The whispers crescendoed, drowning out my thoughts as the shadows thickened. I felt trapped, cornered. I could almost hear a heartbeat, steady and ominous. Before I could react, the pendant slipped from my fingers. It landed on the ground with a clink that reverberated through the silence like a death knell. Everything went dark. I was no longer alone. I blinked as the darkness enveloped me, and for a moment I thought I was dreaming. But then the whispering started again, swirling like smoke and wrapping around me. Panic crept in. I tried to call out, but no sound emerged. The air felt thick and heavy. Suddenly, distant light flickered like a candle caught in a gust of wind. I squinted, heartbeat racing. The shadows receded slightly, revealing a figure standing in the corner of the room. It was a woman, dark hair cascading down her back, her face obscured by the glow. As I stepped forward, I hesitated, unsure of her intentions. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, fear curling my stomach. "Help us!" Her voice was barely a breath, almost a plea. I felt a chill sweep through the room, sapping my courage. "Why? What do you want from me?" I said, taking another hesitant step closer. The figure pointed toward the box I had opened. The images on the photographs seemed to shift under her gaze, almost alive. I felt drawn to them, the stories etched in the faded ink begging to be told. Was she another trapped soul, or was she something else? Then the room shifted. The atmosphere grew colder, and I sensed a presence moving behind me. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. just shadows that seemed to stretch and sway with a mind of their own. The whispers morphed into a chorus of frustrated sighs and cries that pulsed in my head. Frantic, I turned back to the woman. What do I need to do? My voice quivered. Release the truth. Her whisper lingered in the air, and then she began to fade, becoming translucent and merging with the darkness. I blinked, feeling an odd urgency rise within me. Looking back at the box, I rummaged through the photographs. Each face was a haunting memory, each letter a desperate cry from the past. I picked up a letter, its ink faded and nearly illegible. As I read, a name jumped out at me, Emily. I felt the room shift again, the very fabric of it vibrating with tension. Emily, I murmured, trying to piece together the fragments. Is that you? The light flickered again, seeming to respond. I felt warmth beneath my fingertips as I held the necklace, gripping it tightly. The whispers flared, swirling faster, filling me with urgency. I had to find out who Emily was. Just then, the wall next to me cracked, a fine spiderweb of darkness emerging. It pulsed like a heart, and I could feel something ancient and restless on the other side. The coldness deepened, and a chill whispered through, almost beckoning me closer. Before I could react, the shadows coalesced into a figure. It was the man from earlier, the guest I had seen. His eyes burned with a strange, fervent light, locking onto me with a mix of desperation and rage. "Help me!" he shouted, his voice raw and alive with the old echoes of pain. The floor trembled beneath my feet. I knew I was caught in something much bigger than I could grasp. I glanced back at the box, feeling the weight of countless stories resting on me. "Who are you?" I shouted back, heart pounding against my ribs. "That's when the truth will set you free," he hissed, his form flickering like a candle. A surge of energy rippled through the room, and I felt the boundaries of reality unfurl. And then I realized I needed to confront whatever lay beyond the crack in the wall. But what if I couldn't handle the truth? What if it changed everything? I hesitated for only a moment. I couldn't turn back now. As I stepped toward the crack in the wall, the air grew heavier, each breath a struggle against the weight of dread that settled in my chest. The shadows seemed to ripple, as if warning me to turn back, but the urgency surged inside me. I had to know. I reached out, fingertips brushing against the cold, rough surface of the wall. The crack widened slightly, allowing thin tendrils of darkness to curl around my wrist, squeezing just enough to make me gasp. I pulled back reflexively, but something stirred within me, a determination I didn't fully understand. "That's when it will happen," the man's voice echoed again, and it jolted me. I imagined his struggle, his plea. Could I really help him? I took a deep breath and pressed myself against the crack, pushing my eyes closer to the darkness. Just as I leaned in, the whispers intensified, filling the space with a cacophony of voices. "Help us! Help her!" they begged in unison, rising and falling like a dark anthem that ran through my veins. My heart raced and an uneasy feeling crept back in. I didn't want to be responsible for whatever lay beyond. But then I saw it, a flicker of light barely visible at first, illuminating the edges of something that felt alive. As I concentrated, the darkness started to recede just a bit, revealing a glimpse of what was on the other side. I gasped. There was a room, or what looked like one, filled with old furniture draped in white sheets. Dust danced in the air, caught in a shaft of silvery light. And there, in the center, stood an old mirror, cracked but radiating a faint, ethereal glow. I had seen that mirror before. It belonged to the woman from the photographs. "Emily," I whispered, stomach twisting. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was connected to everything. The room around me pulsed, a response to my voice. Suddenly, a figure dashed past the mirror's surface. I stumbled back, heart racing. "What was that?" I murmured, caught between fascination and a primal fear. The whispering turned frantic, growing louder and more insistent. In a moment of clarity, I understood. I needed to pull away the sheets to uncover the truth trapped in this shimmering world. I leaned back into the crack, trying to gather the courage to reach through and make it happen. But the man's face loomed large in my thoughts, his pleading eyes urging me on. The darkness around me felt alive, almost sentient, as if it understood the risks better than I did. I was teetering on the edge of something terrifyingly powerful. "Do it!" a voice called from the crack, sharp and clear against the backdrop of whispers. I realized it was mine, echoing the same urge. Was I ready to face whatever lay beyond? With unease knitting itself into my heart, I knew there was no escaping it. I had to confront the darkness, the truth behind Emily, and the entangled stories that begged for release. Then, all at once, the air shifted violently. The room shuddered, and a cold wind rushed past me, forcing my eyes wide. My fingers scrabbled at the crack, heart thudding in rhythm to the chaos that was erupting around me. That's when I saw it. Through the mirror, a figure emerging with a fierce determination. It wasn't just a reflection. It was a challenge, a reminder that some legacies of the past were never meant to be forgotten. And then, everything went dark. The darkness swallowed me whole. I couldn't see, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was as if I had been thrown into a void, where time lost meaning and the chaos outside faded away. I reached out, but my hands met nothing but oppressive air. "Emily!" I shouted, voice trembling in the confined space, hoping somehow she would hear me. My call echoed back like a taunt, swallowed by the shadows. I felt a wave of panic wash over me. Where was I? What had I unleashed? In the pitch black, I strained my ears for a sound. Any sound. There was nothing, just silence. Then, out of that silence, I felt a pulse, a rhythmic beat that somehow felt familiar. It was almost comforting. I focused on it, trying to find solace, only for it to fade abruptly. "Wait," I gasped, recognizing it was a heartbeat, not mine. I turned, stepping back instinctively, but it was like the ground had fallen away. I had lost my bearings. "This isn't happening," I muttered to myself. Suddenly, a light flickered into existence, illuminating a figure standing in front of me. It was a woman, dressed in a flowing white gown that shimmered like moonlight. Her face was obscured by shadows, but I felt her gaze pinning me in place. "Emily?" I stammered, feeling a desperate hope. She stepped closer, and I could see the contour of her face more clearly. The resemblance was uncanny, but this wasn't the woman from the photographs. This was someone different. "Help us," she begged, voice laced with urgency. "You must understand." Before I could respond, the ground beneath us quaked. I stumbled, arms flailing as I desperately sought support. The figure didn't waver, standing resolute even as the darkness around us roared. I could feel it trying to pull me back, a force that clawed at my mind with frenzied whispers. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, heart racing, voice trembling. In my desperation, I caught a glimpse of something behind her. Shadows writhing, reaching out, hungry. "Emily, please." "I need you to see," she insisted, stepping aside slightly, revealing the figure reflected in the mirror behind her. I recoiled as the face twisted in my direction, a face I recognized. The man who had pleaded with me before. His mouth moved as if forming words. "It's all connected," he mouthed silently, his eyes wide with panic. What did that mean? I felt a pull toward the mirror, an inexplicable need to understand. But then everything darkened again, the air thickening. From the depths of the darkness, whispers erupted, screeching at me, drowning out any semblance of thought. "Flee! Flee!" they shouted. There was a sharp pain in my chest, the feeling of pressure building again. "Enough!" I cried out, shaking my head, trying to block the onslaught of voices. I had to push through. Whatever it was, I had to confront it head on. Suddenly the light flickered again, and I felt a change in the air. The wind shifted to my back as if urging me onward. "Go!" the woman shouted, and with one final glance at the man's terrified face, I lunged for the mirror. That's when I felt a grip on my wrist, cold, unyielding. I gasped, panic surging anew as I turned. The darkness solidified into a figure, its face obscured, but the intent was clear. I wasn't going anywhere. And then, out of the quietness, I heard a voice, a familiar voice that chilled me to the bone. "You can't leave yet." The grip tightened painfully around my wrist. I tried to jerk away, but the figure held fast. Coldness seeped through my skin, rooting me in place. I could barely breathe, the air thick with dread. "You can't leave yet." The voice echoed again, dripping with a twisted familiarity that sent shivers crawling down my spine. My eyes darted to the woman in white. She watched, her expression a mix of terror and determination. I wanted her to help me, but the dark figure between us was a wall I couldn't breach. "Who are you?" I shouted, the words faltering as fear choked my throat. The figure in front of me remained shrouded in darkness, half visible but radiating something sinister. I felt as if I were being pulled into a void, the weight of its presence pressing against my chest. "I need to understand," I pleaded, heart racing as I wrestled against the grip. The darkness around the entity seemed alive, swirling, shifting. "What do you want from me?" The figure's shadowy face began to materialize, revealing cold eyes that pierced into my very being. "You were chosen," it snarled, the words arriving as a raspy whisper that slithered through the air. "You opened the door. Now you must face it." "Face what?" I demanded, voice cracking. I felt exposed, like my insides were being laid bare. Then, unexpectedly, the woman in white stepped forward. Her hand reached out, brushing against the figure, and to my shock, the darkness recoiled, momentarily weakening its hold on me. "Emily, please!" I cried, desperate for help. My vision blurred as I struggled to keep focus, adrenaline making my heart race. The surge of urgency stirred a flicker of instinct within me. I had to break free. With a surge of will, I grasped for the warmth radiating from the woman. "What do you know?" I asked, my voice more steady. "What is at stake?" She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, a jolt of energy shot through the air around us. Suddenly everything went dark again as the whispers amplified, creating a cacophony that drowned out reason. "Flee! Flee!" they screamed, a chorus of chaos ringing in my ears. The pressure in my chest intensified, becoming unbearable. I was losing myself to it. I needed to find a way out, but every instinct told me to stay. Stay and fight, even as panic clawed within me. Then something shifted, an opening in the darkness. It flickered like a cruel joke, the faintest glimmer of light breaking through. "Follow the light," I urged, my own voice breaking the sirens of despair. But that same tug held me back. "Don't!" the woman shouted suddenly, eyes widening as she recognized the danger. The darkness surged, and a whisper slithered into my ear. "You must choose." Before I could respond, the grip on my wrist loosened, and I stumbled back, nearly falling into the abyss behind me. My heart pounded as I stood there, wavering between the light and the encroaching darkness, the weight of my decision pressing heavily upon me. In that moment, clarity struck me like lightning. There was more to the woman than I first understood. Maybe she held answers, or worse, maybe she was tied to the darkness in ways I hadn't fathomed. I glanced back at her, searching her eyes for the truth. Then I saw it, a flicker of doubt. My gut twisted in response. "Choose," the voice commanded again, more forceful this time. Shadows danced around me. The choice felt imminent. And deep down, I knew that whatever choice I made next could seal my fate. The darkness seemed to pulse, like it was alive, and I felt the weight of its intent pressing on me. Caught in this strange standoff, I focused on the flickering light. It felt distant, yet incredibly close, as if it recognized my desperation. "Emily," I called out, hoping to anchor myself to her. "What do I do?" Her face hardened as she stepped closer to the darkness, almost daring it to take her. "You have to choose to defy it, or it will consume you both." "But what if it takes you instead?" I feared. I didn't want to let her down, but I also didn't want to lose her. The shadows writhed, growing restless as if they were sensing my hesitation. "It's not about me, it's about you. You have the power." Her voice cracked with urgency, giving me a strange sense of hope. I took a shaky breath, weighing my options. The darkness spurred me on, whispering promises that felt sickeningly sweet. urging me to step into the void. The light beckoned too, filled with uncertainty but shining brightly, illuminating the way forward. "I can't," I stammered, my heart racing. "Don't overthink it, trust your instincts," she implored, her voice slicing through the madness around us. Suddenly, from the depths of the darkness, a cold gust swept through the air, pulling at me, demanding I make a decision. A shadow shot past us, distorting the space and causing me to stumble. Everything was happening too fast. I turned, heart pounding, and sprinted toward the light, fueled by a gut feeling that screamed for me to escape. As I neared it, the warmth wrapped around me like an embrace, dimming the whispers to an echo. Just as I reached out with my hand, the darkness roared in fury. "You'll regret this," it boomed, 1,000 voices merging into one. I hesitated, fear gripping my heart. In my hesitation, I saw it, the pulsing core of darkness, a swirling mass that seemed to draw energy from my fear. With adrenaline surging through me, I thrust my hand into the light. A shock of warmth flooded over me, bright and welcoming, as the darkness shrieked in agony. But that relief was short-lived. The light broke apart, flickering like a dying star, and suddenly I was back in the void, standing alone in an expanse of nothingness. The figure had vanished, but the echoes of its warning lingered. "Emily," I shouted, panic rising. "Where are you?" There was no answer, just silence. Then from behind me a rustle caught my attention. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. That's when I saw it, a figure emerging from the shadows with familiar features. My breath caught. It was someone I never expected to see. "Help me," I whispered, each word tasting like bitter regret. But before I could make sense of what was happening, a flash of light erupted from behind the figure, illuminating its form and sending shockwaves of realization through me. "Why are you here?" I gasped, my worst fears bubbling to the surface as the darkness swirled once more, eager to engulf us both. I had acted, but the consequences were only just beginning. The light flickered, swallowing me in its brightness as the darkness swirled hungrily around us. I could hardly believe the figure before me. The man from the motel, his face drawn and haunted. "What happened?" I asked, urgency fueling my voice. "How are you here?" His gaze flicked around us, taking in the chaos that had engulfed our surroundings. "You opened the door," he replied, his voice trembling. "We're both caught between these worlds. This place, it thrives on fear and despair." "Are you saying it was never just me?" I asked, my heart racing. His words felt like a confession. They stirred something deep within me, resonating with truths I had barely begun to face. The darkness seethed closer, hungry for the panic radiating from us. I could feel the whispers echoing louder, pleading, mocking, "Help us, help her." "Emily," the man whispered, almost as if he was still trying to grasp the remnants of hope. "You were drawn here for a reason. We need to confront the truth that binds us to this place." A flash of recognition hit me. Emily, the child whose laughter haunted the halls, the girl whose story intertwined with ours. "But how? I can barely stand to face this reality. What if we can't escape?" He stepped forward, the light's glow wrapping around him. "Remember the objects you found? The photographs, the necklace? They hold pieces of the truth. If we can unveil the stories they tell, maybe we can break free." As his words settled in, I felt a surge of understanding, a thread pulling me back to the memory of the room with the box. The truth? But how do we do it? The dark figure, the whispers, the fears, they keep us trapped. He said urgently, taking my hands into his. "If we confront what binds us to this darkness, we can break free. But you have to trust yourself." Just then, the shadows writhed, the chill growing sharper. An icy wind screamed through the void. "Flee!" it cried, its voice smoky and distorted. The man's grip tightened on my wrists, grounding me amid the chaos swirling around us. "You have to believe." His voice cut through the fear, steady and fierce. "Okay," I breathed, heart racing with trepidation as I envisioned the truth. But how do I even start? Those fears, those memories, They lock you in this place, he insisted. You must channel them, make them yours. Remember the people, their stories, their struggles. My breath hitched as I thought of the photographs and the letters in that dusty box. Each had a name, a face, a story echoing from the past. Emily, I murmured, grasping the concept tightly. If we can uncover their stories together, will it work? The man nodded solemnly. We will do it together, one piece at a time. As I prepared myself, bracing for whatever came next, the darkness near us surged violently, clawing at my resolve, whispering regrets and fears with renewed vigor. You can't escape. It will consume you. Watch me, I murmured, channeling my strength as I focused on Emily's laughter from the motel, picturing her in that faded drawing. I imagined her vibrant joy, her spirit echoing through time. Suddenly a light flickered from the shadows, illuminating the crack in the void, and I saw it. A glimpse of the room with the box. Echoes of laughter intertwined with the shadows, beckoning to me. We can do this, I urged, locking eyes with the man. We have to believe. Together we stepped closer, merging into a vessel of light as the darkness tightened around us. Thank you for choosing this path, he said softly, echoing with the weight of his past. As we crossed into the light, memories spilled over us like water, a torrent of laughter, cries, truth set free. Emily, I screamed, hope bubbling into a tangible force, breaking the chains that had bound us for so long. And then, everything exploded in a rush of warmth and clarity. The pressure of the darkness dissipated, swallowed by the pulsing heartbeat of the light. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath, the weight of tension slipping from my shoulders. I blinked my eyes open to find myself sitting in that small motel room, a memory flooding back, laughter echoing softly in the air. Did we? I began, but as I glanced around I realized the room looked different, brighter, filled with the echoes of past and present lingering in the corners. It was almost as if Emily's spirit lingered, a quiet presence cheering us on. Had we broken the curse? Or were we simply transported into an uncharted realm of ambiguity? Time stretched as I heard laughter twinkling from the hallway, fading gently into silence. My heart raced, uncertainty creeping back. Had we truly escaped? Would the darkness ever let go? I took a deep breath and stood, glancing toward the door, unsure of what awaited me. There were still echoes of the past around me, questions left unanswered. But one thing was clear. My fear had transformed, becoming a quiet courage that would guide me as I stepped into the unknown. I moved toward the door, heart pounding in rhythm with the lingering whispers. The future was uncertain, but somehow, I felt ready to face whatever lay beyond. Just before I stepped out, a fleeting thought crossed my mind. What actually happened? And maybe that was part of the journey too. An enduring mystery woven into the fabric of life. I took one last look around the room, leaning into the familiar ache of the past, before stepping out into the world, where shadows could not hold me captive any longer.